I'm going to tell you about the first time I really encountered racism. I was 8 years old. Every Saturday when I was younger, me and my mother used to go to the local store. She would buy hair products and things of that sort. I would go to the convenience store right beside that store and I would make purchases. One day I went into the store to make a small purchase. I was just looking for a can of soda and a chocolate bar. Now, at the time, there was a lot of other children in the store. But when I got up to the counter to pay for my items, the shopkeeper gave me a look that I hadn't actually seen from an adult before. It was a look of confusion. It was a look of hesitation. It was a look of judgment. Right there in the store in front of everybody, the shopkeeper said, "I'm going to need you to empty out your pockets." I had never been so embarrassed in my life. I stood there reaching into my pockets, pulling out change, pulling out my electronics, pulling out lint, pulling out receipts, pulling out lint. It got to a point where I was just reaching in my pocket, hoping to find something else to produce to appease the shopkeeper. Now, obviously, I didn't have anything in my pockets because I hadn't stolen anything. But when I completed the transaction, the shopkeeper basically looked at me and said, "I hope you understand, but we just wanted to make sure that you didn't steal anything." So I took my items off the counter. I went back into the car, already running. My mother was there waiting, and I could barely hold in my tears. My mother looking me in the eye, saying, "Son, what's wrong?" And I told her, this shopkeeper had me empty out my entire contents of my pockets in front of everybody. There were 12 other kids in the store, but I was the only one who was singled out. And my mother asked me one of the most important questions any human being's ever asked me in my life. And she asked me, "Were you the only child in the store that looked like me?" And I answered yes. My mother shut off that car, grabbed me by the wrist, and dragged me to the store and stood eye to eye in front of the store owner and the counter. And her questions were quite simple. Why do you feel my son fits this mold of a criminal, of a delinquent? Do you know my son? Do you even care? It's interesting as a child to see two adults fight. As my mother went on berating this man and asking him questions and asking him questions, it was almost as if I could see him physically shrinking down to nothing. And in the end, she yanked the soda out of my hand and the chocolate bar and threw it back at him and said, "We've already paid for it, but there's no amount of money that you could pay us to take products from your store." When we left the store and went back into the car, I could see how physically upset she was. I could see how angry she was. But she composed herself long enough to explain to me. She said, "Son, never let someone rob you of your humanity. Never allow somebody to label you as something that you're not. That's not who I raised you to be. That's not the man that you're set to become." And it's funny now, as an adult, I understand the value of that lesson she taught me. The problem with racism is that it makes humanity a disposable effect. It's so easy to value somebody as less than you when you feel that they're not equal. And the danger of having these labels as a person of color is that they can be physically dangerous. We've all been keeping up with what's been going on in the news, and a lot of these situations start off as simple misunderstandings. But because someone is not willing to view someone else as a human being, as an equal, these things turn out tragic. Right now, I feel confused. I feel confused at why the person next to me feels that they're not running the same race as me. I feel disappointed because when you're encountering racism, it's a lost opportunity on both sides. The perpetrator is losing out on the opportunity to be a decent human being and to connect with another human being. And sometimes the victim is being denied the opportunity to live. I didn't realize that as a child that my mother was preparing me to survive in a world that is constantly testing my character and questioning my humanity and shaking my beliefs and pushing me to a point where I'm going to fulfill a role that I shouldn't be filling. If there's one lesson that I want you to take from my story, is that humanity must be fought to be preserved. If we are going to evolve, if we are going to grow as a society, we have to value humanity. The times where we've been at our lowest in terms of development in society, segregation, slavery, systematic corruption and oppression is when others were viewed as lesser than. Like we don't sleep, like we don't love, like we don't dream, like we don't die. I'm not here to point the fingers and push blame because for every bad one out there, there's hundreds of good ones. But we need to be better. And we need to remember above all else that we're human beings. We're all encountering our struggles. Nobody owes anybody special favors. But it's not unreasonable to be treated or expect to be treated with human dignity and respect. For all of you out there going through these struggles who have encountered these situations as adults, as professionals, feeling like you are constantly ice skating uphill, I want you to understand that I'm there with you. And for those of you who are seeking to understand the struggles that a person of color goes through, just ask. Spend 5 minutes and just ask. And you'd be surprised the stories you might get over a chocolate bar and a can of soda. Welcome to Speaker Slam Amplifying.